This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, Euro High Definition Radio, UK High Definition Radio, and on Star Cable. If you'd like to give us a call worldwide, toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And for the latest news and the latest updates from Paragators TV, the series, www.paragators.org. My guest this hour is Judika Illes, and she is the author of Magic When You Need It, 150 Spells You Cannot Live Without. Now, many spells and charms take days or even weeks to complete. In Magic When You Need It, Judika offers a collection of super-powered magic to help you right now. Is your career in a slump? Are you being visited by ghosts? Short of cash? Magic When You Need It can help with these problems and much more, X-Zone Nation. Divided into 4 sections: money and career, love, sex and marriage, and children, home, and trouble. Magic When You Need It offers 150 spells to help you find a job, meet your soulmate, protect your home, and many more common and not so common predicaments. Now, using simple instructions and ingredients that can be found in the pantry, combined with the easy-to-find magical oils and botanicals, Judika blends our old world and modern magic to provide the reader and you, the members of the X-Zone Nation, with safe, effective magical remedies for many of life's troubles. Once again, Judika Illes is our special guest. Judika, welcome back to the X-Zone. Great having you with us.
Oh, it's great to be back. Thank you, Rob.
Tell me, magic, do magic spells really work?
Yeah, they do really work. I mean, they wouldn't have existed for forever if they didn't work. But they're not cake mixes. And I think that's what frustrates people. They're mysterious. I could compare it to medicine. Mm-hmm. You know, headache remedies work. Yeah. They don't. The same remedy doesn't necessarily work for every single person.
At the same speed as well.
And exactly. And it doesn't, and just because a headache remedy works for you 4 days out of 5, some days you have a headache that, is challenging.
Yes.
Spells are very similar. You have to, they're magic. They are mysterious. You have to find the right ones that work for you. And the happy news with that is that a lot of the spellcasting process is fun.
Judika, as an old radio DJ yourself, you know that we have to take something called commercials.
Oh, yes.
So please stand by. Great talking to you, Judika. Always nice having you here with us in the X Zone. X Zone Nation, my special guest this hour is a good friend, Judika Illes, and we're talking about her book, Magic When You Need It. Her website is www.judikailles.com. That's Judikaill. Wait a sec. Judikailles. Judika and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Whatever you do, don't go away, and if you must, back in 2.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best.
Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, or psychic phenomenon? Join me, Tim Bartley, co-host of Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, coming mid-January 2017 to the XZBN. We will channel spirits live and talk to them, revealing all kinds of amazing information. Spiritual attachments will be found and removed on the show, and so much more. To find out when you can listen to Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, visit www.xzbn.net for listeners on both sides of the veil.
Welcome back. Judika Illes is our special guest. I'll get it right yet. JUDIKAILLES.com. That's JUDIKAILLES.com. Judika, what are some of the most common spells that people ask you about when they meet you and find out what you do?
People usually want to ask about money spells, lottery spells. Those are the ones that people ask about first. When people get you in private, then they'll start asking about things like protection. There are a lot of spells for physical protection, spiritual protection, spells to change your luck. You know, when everything is going wrong, nothing is going right in your life, what can you do to turn yourself around a little bit? Those tend, and love. You know, love is the standard. Everybody wants to talk about love spells.
But how much of a spell actually depends on your, you know, the old saying, if you confess it, you will possess it. Your own interior mechanism to make it happen.
The ingredient, the unspoken ingredient in every single spell is desire. You have to want it.
Yeah.
And you have to really, the spell, and that's the key with Magic When You Need It. They're emergency spells, because those are the spells that, especially for beginners, those are the spells that work best when you're really afraid, when you really desire something, when you really want something. The converse is that one of the reasons spells sometimes don't work is you're asking for something that you don't really want. You know, there's a conflicted emotion. And sometimes that puts, if you can envision it as a break, you're asking for something. Let's say you're asking for money, but part of you doesn't think you deserve it. Or you're asking for fertility spells. This is a big one where someone is asking, they go through a lot of trouble and expense to cast a fertility spell, but they're ambivalent about actually having the child. Maybe for whatever reason they're being talked into that they want this, but they're not really so sure. Sometimes when a spell doesn't work, one of the things you need to do is explore how badly, are you really asking for what you want? Or, there's a purity of desire. What is it exactly that you want? I always recommend, I know a lot of books have rhymes and charms. I always tell people, don't incorporate any language that you don't understand, and speak from your heart. A lot of spells incorporate a verbal component where you're actually stating what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in plain English or whatever language you speak. Put it very simply and think about it. Are you asking for what you really want? There are a lot of benefits to spellcasting that have nothing to do with the spell. And one of the benefits will be a real clarity of thought. Eventually, your mind starts to sharpen. You become very aware of language, very aware of what other people are telling you, very aware of what you are saying. I listen to people all the time now, and I hear them say, "Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time for this." And think about it. What is that person really saying? You should have time, especially, young people.
Sure.
You have time. I don't have time is a very ominous thing if you really interpret what's being said there.
Basically, they're saying I'm really not interested.
Well, they're also giving their lifetime a finite, they're saying they're not interested, but even beyond that, they're saying that they don't have the time for whatever. But yes, you do. A lot of spellcasting is essentially brainwashing the universe into giving you what you want, into bending. The word witchcraft, Wicca, comes from an Anglo-Saxon root that can be translated as to bend. And you're bending reality. You're shaping it to suit whatever your goal is. And we always, spellcasting is something that we're doing constantly. We're just not doing it consciously. If you can envision that everything in life radiates some sort of a power, colors, numbers, words are really powerful. And we are constantly fragrances. When you go into your house, does it smell good?
Yeah.
It should. Because if you're living in a place that doesn't have a smell that's good for you, it's telling you there's something wrong there. And fixing it is part of, it's a magical process. Spellcasting can really become part of your entire life when you're cooking. Every food has a sort of a magical power. When you're cooking, there's a traditional, very simple Russian spellcasting technique where you just speak over food or drink, and you might say, "Love me," and then you hand it to someone and they drink it. And they're essentially accepting the spell. And you can do it for yourself also. People have this assumption that spells are malevolent. And of course, there are some.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, spells are intended to make your life better. It's harnessing the different energies, the native energies on Earth, and creating a life that suits you, as opposed to the life you might just end up with if you were very passive.
How did the ancients, and basically what you're doing is you're bringing back a forgotten art to the 21st century. And where did the ancients get this wisdom from? And if they have this type of wisdom, what are we missing out?
The earliest documents are magical. And there are theories that the reason people learned how to write is to record spells, to record old prophecies, to record these sort of mystical arts. It was a stimulus for writing. And, of course, there are types of writing. Hebrew letters, runes, the actual letters are believed to be very magical. What magic brings us, and what I think many of us have forgotten in the 21st century, the 20th century, is that look around. Everything you come into contact with, everything you see, hear, everything has a power. Everything is, there's a sacredness. Everything potentially has a value and a power, and it's important and it's significant. And all politics aside, there are certainly conservative magical practitioners, liberal, royalist, you can name them. It's a very, very diverse community. But in general, very ecologically minded, because magic can't be done without plants. Plants, the power of water, the power of wind, the air, all those things are very important. Magic is essentially a poor person's art. You don't have to go out and spend thousands of dollars to cast a spell. Many of them can be done for free, for really, really for minimal amounts. Things in your kitchen.
Such
things
as?
that are there already.
Such as?
Sugar. Sugar is, do you know how you walk by a bakery and it smells really good and it makes you want to go in and buy a cookie?
Yes, ma'am, I sure do.
Sugar, yes. Sugar is a drawing ingredient. There's a magical component to that. I mean, why the bakery and not another type of food store? Because sugar is traditionally used to draw things to you. If you want, it's a component of love spells, because it brings people to your door. It brings people into the bakery. Salt is used for protection.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever are really, really nervous about something, you feel that you have had a bad day, you feel that everything's going wrong, you feel you've been a little cursed, whatever it is, you've seen something that upsets you and you're kind of off kilter, throw some salt into the bathtub and take a bath. That's considered a purifying, protective spell.
Is that why
if you wanted to up the ante a little bit, throw in a little vinegar and a couple slices of lemon too, and now you've got a pretty powerful protection bath. People who watch Supernatural, they're constantly putting salt on the windowsills, constantly drawing circles of salt, because salt is supposed to provide all kinds of protection. I mean, clearly it's not going to, if someone is coming, into your house with malintent, it may not keep out a human being, but it's supposed to provide a spiritual protection that in turn will provide a measure of safety. All kinds of food. New Year's noodles. Those really, really long noodles are traditionally used. They're symbolic of long life, longevity.
Wow. So it seems that once again we're looking into the past to better understand how we can help ourselves in the present, and how can we use the past knowledge and the present knowledge to prepare ourselves for tomorrow, the future.
Well, you have to envision, who do you want to be in the future? Where do you see yourself in a year, in 5 years, in the best possible circumstances? We can sit and be depressed and think about where we'll be in the worst circumstances, but all things, if everything went your way, who would you be? Where would you live? What kind of a person would you be? What would be your accomplishments? Would you be alone? Would you be with someone else? Who would you be with? All those things, you can then begin step by step to create your future.
But what happens if you're like me? I'm perfectly content with who I am.
Right.
I can't imagine anything being better in my life.
The old school thing would tell you to be quiet right there, because you are attracting the evil eye.
But I also believe that I have the strength and the power to repel the evil eye.
And that's what the magic... Right, exactly. That would be what a magic spell would do, simply to maintain whatever it is that you have.
Ah, gotcha.
To protect yourself, to ward off jealousy, to ward off people who would be envious, you can. I tell people when they're learning how to cast a spell, and they say,
Judika, you and I have to take our news break. Please stand by. We'll be right back. Judika Illes is our special guest. JUDIKAILLES.com is her website, and she's the author of Magic When You Need It. We'll be back on the other side of the news as we continue here in the X.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. Judika Illes is our special guest. Her website is www.judikailles.com. That's judikailles.com. She's the author of Magic When You Need It, 150 Spells You Can't Live Without. Is there a difference, Judika, between a spell and a prayer?
Yes. They're very close, but the classic definition is a prayer is a request. You are requesting something. A spell is a demand.
So a spell holds more clout.
A spell demands that the universe provide what you need. Spells are, and I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, it's my experience, my personal experience, is that a lot of times when spells don't work, it's because there's a playing quality. When you're just playing with it, it may not really work. But when you are desperate to need, because, I had a house. I got a house out of foreclosure. That is my, claim to fame. I couldn't get pregnant. These are major life issues. When these big things happen in your life, and you just you sort of hit a point in your life, and you say, well, I see a road opening up, and I cannot go down that road. I need to create a new road for myself. When you feel that as a real reality, the spell will work. It is helpful to do a little playing before that, because you get a sense of what works for you. Because there's all different styles of spell casting. There are highly ritualized styles. There are very spontaneous styles. There are things that you do only with language. There are spells using candles, spells using baths. So, it's not really necessarily a good moment when you have the emergency to all of a sudden have to go out and essentially have this brand new education. It's good to be prepared. It's like the Boy Scouts, be prepared. So that just in case, because life does have a way of throwing us emergencies. So when life does do that, then you're prepared to handle it. I have been working on a book of saints, which will be coming out at the beginning, I think maybe in the autumn of 2011. And saints, people pray to them. You pray and you ask them to intercede. And,
certainly, yeah.
Churches and all kinds of shrines around the world are filled with plaques and, thrown away crutches and all kinds of stuff testifying to miracles received. But saints are also incorporated into magic spells. There's sort of a subversive aspect to a lot of the most popular saints, St. George, St. John the Baptist, Michael Archangel, where people actually incorporate them, and the spell is directed toward them. And it becomes sort of a different relationship, but a very affectionate relationship. So there's all types of spells. It's a vast topic.
All right, let me ask you this then. Are there any spells that can be cast, or let me simplify the question. What are the dangers of spell casting and divination?
The danger of spell casting, I'll tell you the primary danger, you might get what you asked for.
Really?
So be careful. Be careful. Spells do work. So, don't ask for something that you are not sure you really want, because sometimes they work anyway.
Is there a difference between a spell and a curse?
A curse is a kind of a spell. A curse would be classified as a type of a spell. Sometimes we ask for things, but we don't have all the information.
Mm-hmm.
Read the newspapers. You read terrible stories about people, they've just arrested this serial killer, this mass murderer, this person, and that person, may have a significant other who, before that person knew the reality, just thought this person was wonderful and asked for them. And, we ask for things that how many of us end up in relationships that if we had known, 5 years earlier, if we had known before we got into the relationship, but now, maybe you wouldn't have tried so hard to be in the relationship. We take jobs that we think they look wonderful until you're in the job, and then all you want to do is get out of the job. Things are not always what they seem. And so, investigate. Be sure you are asking for what is really the best for you. The worst thing,
mm-hmm.
beyond that, I think if you are operating from a position of love and respect, there aren't that many dangers. Another danger is the spell doesn't work, and you're back where you started. Malevolent spells, curses, hexes, spells that are done out of anger or jealousy. What you want to think about beyond the ethics, there's a certain element of like attracting like. I mean, in a good way to experiment with this is go outside. When you go outside today, smile at people.
They
and
smile
you'll see
back.
that people will smile back.
Yeah.
Versus frown at people spontaneously. Don't even give them a reason. Just frown at people, and you will put those people in a bad mood all day. And they will probably not be that nice to you. If you consistently cast spells that are not that are hateful, you will start to get that kind of energy coming back to you.
So did witches get a bad rap from society because a couple of witches did some negative spells and
my theory, because there are plenty of negative people out there. My theory is that witches or spellcasters in general got a bad rap because they're not obedient. I mean, if you are very passive and obedient, spellcasting is not for you. If you are willing to sort of take whatever lumps life gives you, then take them. You don't need to get involved with spellcasting. Spellcasting tends to be, it's all very middle class now. But once upon a time, spellcasting was very much the province of the repressed. Women, there aren't that many spells. There are spells from women getting men to behave. There are not so many spells intended for men to get women to behave because men had other methods. Spellcasting is really good for things when other methods don't work. It's not a substitute. Don't cast a spell to remove your headache if you can take an aspirin. If there's a simple conventional solution, there's no reason really for the spell. Spells are for when the conventional solution isn't working or to help the conventional solution. So let's say you're looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
A spell can maybe increase your chances of getting the job. It can increase your chances of more opportunities, but you still have to go for the interview. You can't cast a spell and then sit in your home quietly and wait for, the hand to come out of the skies and hand you what you're asking for.
And I would imagine that's what a lot of people do, and then they complain because the spell didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. It's hand in hand. You can do a job candle. You can spend all this money, getting this wonderful candle, and you get the herbs and you do whatever else you have to do. But if you're not actually looking for work also, you're really decreasing the likelihood that your spell will work.
It's just like when The Secret came out. Everybody was taking these pictures or cutting up things, putting them up, putting them wherever they are. And, I'm sorry, the Lamborghini is not going to appear out of nowhere in your driveway, folks, unless you go out and work for it and make that happen.
Right.
And
right.
do you find a lot of people with spells, when they first get into it, expect too much too fast?
I find that, and I have a lot of email from this, so I sort of know this for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Spells, when they are written, and I'm responsible for this too, the easiest way to write a spell is in the form of a recipe. It's in steps. First, step 1, step 2, step 3, you do this, and then you do this, and you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like a recipe. And when you do a recipe or when you do a science experiment, if you follow the steps, if you buy the cake mix, and if you do what the steps say, you will have what the picture in the box looks like. It's pretty predictable. Spells are not that predictable. Sometimes they work better. Sometimes they work in different ways than you expected. It's hard to time them. People want to know, when will the spell work? Often they work pretty quickly. And a standard measure is to wait for a lunar cycle before you start getting nervous about it. But sometimes they work in odd ways. It's magical. It's not entirely predictable. So I think that's frustrating for people. They did all the steps right, and so where is the result? Also, and this may sound silly, but for a lot of people, this is important. There's a lot of spell casting on television shows like Charmed or Buffy, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
On TV, it's a visual format. There are special effects. You get lights, you get smoke, you get sound effects. It doesn't happen in real life. It's a little anticlimactic. And that may sound that may sound very obvious, but it's not for many people. They're looking for, the smoke and mirrors. And when you don't have that, the magic in the spell comes when it works. Or in the process. There's a beauty to a lot of the process. It's very satisfying. If you candle magic, it's called dressing. You dress the candle. You rub it with oil, and you infuse it with your emotion, and you can carve it, and you can carve it with romantic materials like a rose thorn. There's a very satisfying ritualistic aspect to it. It can make you very happy. There's a lot of joy in spell casting. But you have to sort of put your heart into it. If you do it in a mechanical way, you won't really reap those benefits.
Right. So how can your book help people in their day-to-day lives? What kind of spells do you have in your book out of the 150 that you can share with us? We've got about 2 minutes before I go to the next break. The one
people always ask me about is boss fix to make your boss be nicer to you.
Really?
And the formula's in the book, but basically it's harder to do now because less people smoke. And you used to have to take a cigarette from your boss's pack, and you would remove the tobacco, and you would grind it up with the newspaper from your boss's paper, and make a very fine powder because it has to be surreptitious. If your boss finds a big pile of powder in his office, you might be out of the job, and that's a different way to get him. That's not the way you wanted to get him off your back. But you make this very fine powder, and you sprinkle it so that your boss walks over it. And people claim that it has good effects. It will make your boss be a little kinder to you, or maybe ignore you, which is not always a bad thing.
Right.
So that is the spell that I probably get the most mail about.
But how much of a spell is actually the spell and not the person's perception that they did this, so this should happen, so they themselves actually make the change happen, and it has nothing to do with the spell?
Well, I mean, the person does make that change happen. The spell is really the format by which you do it. And that's why there are different kinds of spells. I mean, it is you're doing it, or you may be doing it in conjunction with an angel or some sort of a spirit, but you're doing it. I guess you know that the spell worked because sometimes we want things very badly and they don't work. It is not the power of positive thinking. Sometimes is sufficient, and sometimes it's not. The various ingredients in a spell, the various herbs or minerals, they're sort of your allies. They lend you their power, and they help you achieve your goal. But without your input, without your efforts, without your goal, there's no spell. So that's the most crucial part.
So it's all part and parcel.
Yeah, some people have really, really powerful will. I mean, and that's the old esoteric concept of will.
Judika, stand by, my dear. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation, our very special guest this hour is Judika Illes. She's the author of Magic When You Need It, 150 Spells You Can't Live Without. Her website is www.judikailles.com. That's JUDIKAILLES. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we do our final wrap for this segment of the X-Zone and tonight's show. Don't go away. We'll be back.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. Judika Illes is our special guest this hour. She is a spell collector, fortune teller, crisis counselor, and a spirit worker who has magicked herself out of many an emergency situation. She is the author of Pure Magic, a complete guide to spellcasting, and the Element Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, the ultimate referent book of magical arts. She lives in New Jersey and workshops across North America. You can visit her online at www.judikailles.com. That's JUDIKAILLES. First of all, Judika, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. But I have to ask you, where did your interest in spells come from?
Oh, God, I don't know. You know, since I was a little girl, since I was tiny, I've just always had a love for, people would, I grew up on fairy tales. And even when I was 3, 4 years old, they'd read Hansel and Gretel to me, and I identified with the witch, not the children. So, I don't know. It's always been, some of us just were called early. It's really been that music. I've been having such a good time listening to the wonderful music you've been playing. They're my 2 eternal loves.
Do you think that there will become a time when people will realize that
Witchcraft is nothing to fear. It's actually a very ancient religion. No one I know has ever had anything negative happen to them because of witchcraft. In fact, witchcraft is to me a religion of love, not only for each other but for nature.
I think every religion on earth, and literally every one, the majority of their adherents are, kind, good people. And every religion certainly has people who are not so kind. But that's how people are. That's not necessarily a reflection of the religion. There are unhappy people, and unhappy people sometimes behave badly, and they could come from any walk of life. Not necessarily, they're not necessarily interested in the magical arts or in witchcraft or in a nature-based religion. That could be anywhere. People are, one thing to think about is that anything that is unknown or that we don't know how it works appears very mysterious. I was reading books from the early days of electricity and magnetism. People perceived them as very mysterious. It was a strange occult force. So, Matt, who knows? Maybe someday we'll be able to measure the forces that are used in the spell, and it won't even look magical anymore.
Judika, you and I have to say so long for now. We've just run out of time. As always, great talking to you. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I love
Thank
talking
you.
to you, and thanks for talking to us about your new book, Magic When You Need It, 150 Spells You Can't Live Without. And Exonation, for more information, www.judikaillis.com. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So until then, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night now.